Welcome back to Six Picks Music Club, a music podcast for people who lie to their doctors about their alcohol consumption. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Six Picks Music Club. It's me, Dave, as always. Here with me is Jeffro.
Duh.
And Russ.
What's up?
And today we're delving into the world of secret songs, hidden tracks on albums and records and things. Before we get started, we got to get a password. What's the password this week, Frodo?
Is it Stanky Jankum?
Stanky Jankum. Yes, you got the memo. That's great. All right, let's open up the door. Come on in, listener. Get into the corners. Find yourself a seat. Find your comfortable space. Fro, you have some special news, right? You're growing your team?
I'm growing my brood. My wife is heavy with her third papoose.
Congratulations, dude. We're super excited for you. Listeners excited, too.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. So I was recently visiting my hometown, and I discovered something that I hadn't thought about before, which is that the only time it's okay, really, to talk to your mom about sex is when
you're a teenager?
You're announcing a pregnancy.
Oh, okay.
What don't we know about your upbringing, dude?
Okay, so you're back home and you're telling your mom about your method?
Yeah, so I was like, Mom, there's some excitement, but we're pregnant with our third kid. And she was like, oh my gosh, when did that happen? And I was like, well, we were on a trip, and the other two kids were with their other grandparents, and we had some time alone. And she's like, oh yeah, and one thing led to another, huh? And you got in there, and we're like, what, Mom? What are you talking about? Yes. And then she's like, no, but
oh no,
like, when specific, on what date was it? And I was like, I don't know. It was like May 17th or to the 20th in there. She's like, when specifically did you penetrate? And so it just keeps escalating. They want so many details about the making of this child.
Oh, I remember those days, man.
We were on the elevator at her apartment, and I was letting her off, and then she was like, well, thank you so much for making another grandbaby for me. And I was like, no problem, Mom. I was thinking of you when I did it. And then she felt weird. Then she felt weird, guys.
It's funny, like when my wife and I first got married, there's that question, because we didn't have our first kid for a couple of years after we got married. And, inevitably it always comes up at some holiday or whatever, where they're like, oh, are you guys trying yet? And we decided just to kind of flip it back and say, well, we do try regularly. Yes, we tried earlier today. We tried this morning. And I think we have a plan to try later this afternoon after supper.
In the guest bed.
Right. In the...
Hey, Mom, I meant to ask, are the sheets clean up there?
They're not anymore.
Still the Superman sheets on the twin bed from my youth. And then my younger brother's like, yeah, it doesn't work in the butt. Before we get into it, though, let's talk a little bit about hidden tracks and secret songs and how they started and why artists use them. What's your take on that?
I was thinking about this, man. It was a phenomenon that was limited to compact discs, which were little spinny things. And tapes, I guess. Cassette tapes before that.
I would even caveat that it goes back even further.
You're going to go to the Beatles?
Well, yeah. So the Beatles, they have a couple of tracks where they've got, hidden things. Like they've got messages that are backwards. They've got they would press a double groove on the vinyl. So depending on where you drop the needle, you would get one song or another.
No shit. I did not know that.
Or there would be a lock groove at the end where it would play just and not turn off. So, and it's funny because when Jack White started his record plant or whatever and started putting out his own records, he did a record where it had a double groove intro to one of the songs. And depending on where you drop the needle, you either got the acoustic guitar version or you got the electric guitar version. And so that was kind of a cool little thing.
But that's not what we're talking about, Dave. That's bending the concept.
Okay. Well, then you let us know.
Secret songs were songs that usually followed the final track on a record that was on a compact disc. You go to the final track on the CD, you'd listen to it, and instead of starting over, it would just curiously continue playing. And you're like, oh, what's going on here?
It's like it's just quiet.
Yeah, just quiet, dead air. And sometimes minutes would pass by, and then you get a song, or sometimes a couple of songs that the artist would embed minutes after the final track on the record. And we all knew these as secret songs. This is what millennial people call Easter eggs on things. I don't really want to call it that. I don't really like that much. I like secret song. So there were a lot of secret songs in the 1990s on compact disc records. And we're selecting 6 of them for this ep.
There's an Oasis album from '02. There's a song called Better Man at the End, and there's a 30-minute space before the song called The Cage that follows it.
What?
Holy majoli.
And if you go to Spotify, that track is 38 minutes long. They didn't cut it.
Is there any band that were just meaner to their fans? They just bullied their fans around more than Oasis. It's like, okay, we all like their music, but the guy would go up there, Liam Gallagher, and just stand still with his hands behind his back and sing the songs and make us all want it more.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's good stuff, though. It's good music.
Yeah, I love Oasis.
I love them, too. All right, well, so who wants to kick us off today? Jeff, you wanna take our lead? My
secret songs have in common that they're uncharacteristic for the bands, which is, I think, what secret songs were sometimes about. Is that, hey, we wrote this song that we like that's kind of awesome, or we want to record this song that we like that's kind of awesome, but it doesn't fit our brand. It doesn't fit who we're supposed to be as a band. So instead of just leaving it off or releasing it on a B-sides record in the future, we'll just make it a secret song at the end, a little gem for people to happen upon, a little treasure chest. So both of my songs are like that. The first one is by Stone Temple Pilots, friend, off of the record Purple.
Yes.
Released, I believe, in 1994. You can fact check me on that.
I love this record.
Yeah, Purple is Stone Temple Pilots' second record, and it takes the hard, cranking, crunching, grinding rock of the first album and tunes it down a notch and with some more acoustic vibes, but it's still rocking. There's no doubt that Purple still rocks. On the back of the compact disc, and on the back of, I have this on vinyl too, it says 12 gracious melodies, but
oh wow,
there are only 11 songs. Huh. What a curious thing.
Curiouser and curiouser.
The 11th song is called Kitchenware and Candy Bars. And great song. You listen to that song, and then there's the curious silence that follows after the 11th song. What are we going to get? Is there something here? And it slips into a lounge song called My Second Album. It's got some crooning on the part of frontman Scott Weiland, and he name drops Johnny Mathis, and it sounds like a real celebration, and like they're funning around with their second record. They're all pumped about, recording this thing. And in the song it says singing by a wishing well, right? It turns out that this is not an original song by them, but it was actually a cover of a song from 1985 that was recorded by an autistic crooner named Richard Peterson. And one of them happened upon Richard Peterson's album, and they really liked it. He had the first song on his second album was called My Second Album, and it's this song. And so they got a hold of the guy.
Oh, that's hilarious. I had no idea.
Yeah, I know. They got a hold of the guy and requested permission, and he of course granted it. And so they put it as their secret song, and then they started.
I thought it was Scott Peterson or Richard Peterson that was actually singing it. Is it not him actually singing it?
I don't think so. I think it's Scott Weiland singing it. I could be wrong about that, but they opened a lot of their shows with the My Second Album song. So he does do a live version of it at least. This album went double platinum. It sold 2 million copies, which is wild to think about.
Dude, I gotta fact check you again, man. This record sold 6 million copies.
Shit. So this story though is after the first million, Richard Peterson made $10,000, and after the second one he made $20,000, and he kept getting paid $10,000 each million they sold. And I guess I just was reading a story from after the 2 million album mark.
Oh, okay.
So yes, I guess he made 60 grand off of this, which is pretty great for a guy that nobody has really heard of much. Who got his song on the Stone Temple Pilots record in the secret spot.
He was like this street artist that just loved Johnny Mathis, and I love that whole style. It's so fucking funny.
And that's why he goes like Johnny Mathis, for Mathis lovers, bum bum. This album has his style.
So is it on the vinyl? Is it in the run out track? How does the vinyl work?
I meant to do that research before this app. I don't know.
Okay.
Isn't that terrible? All listeners in suspense now. Is it on the vinyl? To be continued. This speaks to another sad truth, though, which is that whenever I'm listening to my records, because I have 2 children and a third on the way, I really only get through side A. I don't even listen to side B most of the time because there's just not time. Like, I'll play side A when we're getting ready for school in the morning, and then I pull the needle off, and then that was listening to that record that day. It's sad. It's a sad story.
Do you talk sexy to it when you pull it off? No? You just do it dry? Just pull it dry?
Oh. Yeah, just
Well, I mean, I think he tried spitting in his hand once, but fucked it up.
So Atlantic is the studio that, or the label that this is on. And this is the 75th, this year's the 75th anniversary of Atlantic Records. And this Stone Temple Pilots record and the first record,
Core.
Thank you, are being remastered from the original tapes. And it looks like Kitchenwares and Candy Bars are listed as a single track, so we will see if Analog Productions presses the full 3 minutes of silence in between those 2 songs.
Yeah, it's a long one.
Awesome. Well, no, it brought back some great memories. This is a CD that I got when I was a wee lad. I got this one in the Pearl Jam Vitology album at the same time. Another great record of that era.
You were wee at some point?
Yeah, I was wee.
Huh. It's hard to believe.
Now I'm me. I'm more of a. You take that we and you flip it upside down, the W, because of the mass. You add the mass, and so the W goes into an M. Thanks. That's a good fat joke, dick.
I didn't even make a fat joke.
You're right. That's how it occurred to me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, sensing a bit of self-consciousness, which is self-consciousness that you deserve, because when you were a young man, you were very thin and you were an adorable actor, and I was always chubby and used to relentlessly make fun of how hefty I was.
That is true.
And now we have about equal heft, so that's on you, bro.
That's fair.
I'm comfortable in my fat skin.
I think our calf to ankle ratio is still very different, though.
Yeah, I still rock the cankles. Yeah, somebody said once I have Cabbage Patch doll legs, which it's accurate, and it was the birth of a complex for me. My second song, I'll just go ahead and steam through, is from the Scottish band Travis. Travis is the man who released 1999. There's a secret song called Blue Flashing Lights. The Man Who is a great album that I've listened to a Google of times, if you will. And for all of those of you who have listened to The Man Who, we got a real smooth record. A lot of strumming, a lot of easy rhymes, but catchy as all get out. I mean, these are just excellent pop songs of the late 1990s. And what we were getting during that time, we've talked about this before, in the US was just like Limp Bizkit and new metal. And so I jumped ship off of rock and roll for a while. I went all the way to Glasgow to get my music and found Travis there. Some great songs on this album: Why Does It Always Rain on Me, Turn, Driftwood, etc. After all that, like, just smooth, perfectly produced rock and roll music, there's this song that it's kind of a gritty song about a real problem in Scotland at the time, which is domestic abuse. This is a song about domestic abuse and about blue flashing lights that show up when the police arrive after an abusive father has come home drunk and basically like tormented his family. And it's written from the perspective of a neighbor who's watching this go down. But what I dig about this is that Travis is sweet to the point of almost being like twee would be a word that you might use for it. And this is them saying like, nah, we could write about the real stuff on the street. You know, we had a hard upbringing just like everybody else, and we've seen some stuff. And it's a rocker. Like, it makes you feel it. And so it's like, blue flashing lights last Saturday night brought the neighbors out on the street. And the chorus is like, no, they never called you. They never called you. And they're getting into it. And so,
Yeah.
So I've always really liked this one. It shows that Travis can write different kinds of songs if they want to. Fran Healy, the lead guy, can belt.
So Nigel Godrich produced this record of Radiohead fame there.
The sixth member of Radiohead.
I like to think that he's just in the studio with them saying like, you guys, you got to do a song that's got a little more balls to it. It's just, this is too sad and sappy. You got to like get a rocker going. Come on, like, it's not all fucking rain.
I don't know why he's like fucking Bill Nye or something. He's like a young British man from Oxford. He's like,
I've never met him.
Yeah. Received pronunciation. Yeah, he's gonna have received pronunciation. I'm pretty sure. I've never heard Nigel Godrich speak. Have you?
I have not. I've not heard him speech.
I've not heard him speech, idiot. All right, somebody else talk about their picks. Let's talk about these other ones.
Yeah, Russ, what do you got?
Dude,
right, my first
what
pick
just came out of your body? Is that like a...
Did something fling out?
No, I just heard like a...
It sounded like a belch.
Yeah, I heard a belch.
Oh, it wasn't about, no, so it was probably, sorry, it's a cough. We just found out, as we started this, I told Dave earlier, I'm not feeling well, that I'm doing this on the flu right now, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Flu guy.
So my brain's a little foggy, and yeah, things might be coming out of my body, sorry.
So listener, we are
hot.
Social
That I'm doing
distancing
this on
over
the
the
flu.
internet as we record, so do not fear for our lives.
Yeah, I like watching other people have the flu, but they're not in the same room as me. That's actually one of my it's like a fetish that I have. I have a room.
You find the ones where people are just sickly on there, and
Yeah, just a bunch of people hacking with the flu, and I have a little channel. I'm sure there are people that'd be into that. Just like the Munchausen by proxy people are like, oh, this is the best.
Oh yeah, you're so sick. I love it.
This is so hot.
I feel like such a good mom. I would take such good care of you.
I would take so good care of these sick babies.
So anyways, patient zero, what do you
All right.
got for us today?
okay. So my first pick is from Pennywise, the 90s punk band,
Yeah.
from their sophomore album from 1993 called Unknown Road, which is quintessential SoCal hardcore. The hidden track is called Slow Down. They remastered the album in 2005, and I can't verify this for the CD, but the song is now missing from the streaming version of this album, so you have to find it somewhere else.
Okay.
They just completely cut it. So when you were talking about the STP reissue, it's quite possible they're going to cut it. Anyway, you can find the same version from the album on a 1995 compilation called Punk Sucks. And then they re-released the song in 2014 on their 11th studio album called Yesterdays, which is a collection of songs written by their bassist Jason Thirsk, who died of an accidental self-inflicted gunshot wound. So apparently, in 96, apparently not a suicide, or maybe a suicide. It seemed like it was accidental, but he was also depressed.
Just playing with the gun.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That recording's a little different. It's definitely a remastered version. The song is much clearer than the original, but there's this crowd element that was going through the original, that like of people talking in the background and like hooting and hollering, but they just took all that out.
No, so the Pennywise thing is interesting because like I love how this track starts. It's like it's got a really escalating kind of drum hit that goes into the guitars, and then it just kind of kicks off. But like when you talk about the original version, because I couldn't find it, I had to like get a YouTube of it or whatever, and
right,
because I had the Yesterday's version, and they are different. It's like that crowd element sort of plays into, I think, one of the things that is so dynamic about punk rock in general is that live show element. And like Pennywise is one of those bands that led the way for a lot of punk. I think that like people now look at some of their stuff and say like, oh, it just all kind of sounds the same or whatever. But like, I think it's sort of like talking about TV sitcoms and saying that, and then watching Seinfeld and saying, well, everybody else is kind of doing that. Well, they're doing it now, but like Seinfeld did it first. Pennywise did it first. So it's it's interesting.
I think this is the best song on the album, which is funny because it was a secret track, and
this song jams, dude. This song fucking rocks.
They never went mainstream. Pennywise never went mainstream, but they do have a worldwide following, solidifying them in the punk underground scene. They've been active for over 35 years. They have 12 studio albums. They were one of the original bands in the Rock Against Bush campaign that came out. There was like a 2-volume.
Yeah, they just really don't like pubic hair across the board on anyone. And I think that, they're ahead of their time. 25 years later, I think we can all look back and see them as like seminal, real pioneers.
Yeah.
Just blazing a path.
So it was the Rock Against George W. Bush.
Oh, George. Yes,
George W. Bush.
George, that's the Bush. Yeah, right.
So they generally have like this kind of overall positive viewpoint and like motivation with their lyrics. But in the beginning, their aggressive music attracted a lot of racist and violent fans after the first album. And the association, just like a confused singer Jim Lindberg.
He should change his name to Lim Jimberg. Lim Jimberg is better. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead. That's stupid.
That doesn't make any sense.
He was quoted as saying, "It goes to show you how stupid people are. We had a logo of a P and a W, and they said that stands for white power." And he says, "We made it very obvious in our shows that people should take pride in who they are, not because of their skin color. Hate is so diametrically opposed to everything we stand for." And then he was so disgusted by it that he ended up leaving the band. He told the LA Times, "I took a look at myself and said, what am I doing here? I have such an aversion to this type of behavior, violence and hate mongering, and I'm stuck in the middle of it as if I'm the spokesperson for it."
It's always been an issue for like punk artists to separate the mode, which is violent, from the message, which isn't necessarily fascist. Some punks are fascists. There are proper boot-wearing, skinhead Nazi fascist punks, like, and they were always mixed in with who are like anti-racist progressive punks. And so I think you can see that difference between like the Sex Pistols crowd was kind of the fascist crowd, and the Clash's crowd was the like reggae loving anti-racists that also liked punk music. But That's always been an issue. Is like the Clash had "White Riot" was one of their songs, and some people misinterpreted that as being like pro-white rioting, and that's not what it was. It was a criticism. But you know what I'm saying is that it's always been a problem.
Oh, for sure. Real quick, the guitarist from Pennywise, well, first off, he's got this thing where he just ends up getting really drunk and just pukes on people. He pukes all over the crowd. He just pukes, like, it's just a thing with him, apparently. He goes to Loveline, and he's, like, eating pizza and shooting tequila.
Ugh.
They're going through the show, and they hear, like, a cough, and he pukes all over the console. And then at this point, he's so trash, I guess he just starts chasing people around and puking on them, and he corners Dr. Drew, and he's, like, sticking his fingers down his throat. Just puking all over him. And then Dr. Drew has to hit him in the head and climb on a bookshelf to get away from him. Anyway, they invite him back 4 years later to Loveline, and this time Adam Carolla's in there with him, and he barricades. He's like 6'5", just huge, and he barricades. They're in the small room, barricades himself at the door, and threatens that he's got this non-existent grenade, and then he tells Adam Carolla that he's going to take him to Poo Poo City, and it starts threatening that he's going to make him eat his shit.
Well, speaking of shit.
Right on. Oh, okay. My second pick, which is off of Green Day's third album, the 1994 hit Dookie, is called All By Myself.
That's their third album?
Yeah.
I thought it was their first album.
39 Smooth and Kerplunk.
Nobody listened to those. Those don't count.
You would think it was their first album, hoser.
All right, so I guess it seems like every 2 or 3 episodes, I end up having a song that is about masturbation or happens to mention masturbation.
Sensing a theme.
This time, the entire song is centered on it. It's written and performed by drummer Frank Edwin Wright III.
Nobody calls him that.
Better known by his stage name Trey Cool.
There he is. There he is.
Nobody was looking. I was thinking of you.
So I think the song was recorded at a home studio during a party, and you can just hear people listening and talking behind him. And, you know, it's one of those things. And Trey Cool will occasionally play All By Myself live, usually with Dominated Love Slave, which is off their second album, Kerplunk, that he also wrote. Going to go into Dave's territory and talk about business for a second. Green Day is probably the most successful punk band of all time. Dookie, which the band wanted to title Liquid Dookie, but the label said no.
Better. Yes. Oh man, that's too bad. Liquid Dookie. It's like you had some Wendy's fries and mixed in with a Frosty, and now you got Liquid Dookie. You know.
So it sold 22 million copies.
Holy shit balls.
Yeah, that's wild, right?
I had it. I mean, I was
I
one
had
of
it
them.
too, yeah. So 22 million records.
22 million records. And this is going to go back to a previous episode when we were talking about grunge bands refusing to embrace success and fame.
Oh, yeah.
Green Day totally did. They loved having money and fame. They jumped at the opportunity to record in better studios, play bigger venues, and watch their fan base grow. But I went back and watched their 1994 Chicago Live I found on YouTube. Dude, those guys were meth hounds. It is hilarious. They're so
Really?
Oh my god! If you watch this video, they're so twitchy and aggressive, and like the spit flinging from Billy Joe's mouth is just like fireworks shooting out. It's hilarious. When he addresses a crowd, like there's just no doubt he is just cranked up. It is.
Oh, they were also not into pubic hair, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, definitely anti-Bush. Yeah.
But they were also in that same Rock Against Bush, but they were in the second volume.
Thanks, Russ. Those are great. I love both of those.
When masturbation's lost its fun, listen to Russ songs about masturbation. Dun-dun-dun.
Quick aside there, I don't know that that's ever happened for me. It's always been fun. I've always enjoyed it.
Oh,
Always.
you never had like a 3-timer and like in a day, and you're like on the last one, you're just like, what am I doing with my life?
No.
No, I have not. I've always celebrated the three-timers.
It's like, wow, man, you did 3? That's awesome.
Yeah, you need a little bit of extra to get you through that third one. That's why you got to visit my Munchausen fetish room. And that's what's really going to get you over the edge on that last one. Watching all the sneezing and wheezing. Oh, yeah.
Ooh, get a tissue. Yeah. All right, so my tracks. I'm going to start off with a track that is at the end of a fantastic record by the one and only Miss Lauryn Hill. Her solo album, her only solo studio album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and that song is Can't Take My Eyes Off You. It was the first hip-hop record to win Album of the Year, which is insane. She was dating Wyclef, and then like that fell apart, and she was pregnant, and not with his baby, but it was the end of that relationship that led her to walk away from the Fugees and do this record. It's funny because this song wasn't originally included on the record. They recorded this song and they were going to release it on the soundtrack to Conspiracy Theory, but then it didn't actually get released on the soundtrack, but a DJ got a hold of it and like burned a copy and started playing it in Southern California, and then it just like it blew up and it became this huge hit. And then they were like, oh, I guess we got to put it on the record, and it was this big hit for her, and it drove a lot of sales. It's this really interesting track because she was 8 months pregnant when she recorded it, and the dude who did the recording with her was recounting the story of she's just 8 months pregnant and she's lying on her back in the apartment where they've got everything set up.
You're not supposed to lie on your back when you're 8 months pregnant. It's bad for the baby and bad for mom.
She was 21. She didn't know. She didn't have Whoopi Goldberg there to help her with that. Like, they were in a movie together. They were in Sister Act 2 together. That's why they know each other. But
yeah, I got that. It was just me and you and one other person in the world that understood what you were talking about.
But yeah, so her version was also nominated for the Grammy in 1999 for Best Female Vocal Pop Performance. It's also the first hidden track of all time to be nominated for a Grammy, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, that's interesting, dude. That's why it tops all the secret track top 10 lists. If you go out and look on the Googles at top 10 lists, it's at the top of all of them.
Is it on there?
I'm not saying that it's unoriginal of you to select that one. It's the song that sold this record.
No, it's fantastic. It's a good one, and I love it. But I will transition from that one to my next track, which is off of the 1998 studio album, sixth studio album by Beck. That is the album Mutations, and the track is Diamond Bollocks. Diamond Bollocks is actually loosely translated to English as hard nuts. Hard testicles. So it's kind of a song about getting real in your plums. Nice down and dirty. Also produced by Nigel Godrich, which is interesting. Full circle there.
Was it?
Yeah. I think he had a similar conversation because, like Jeff was talking about with Travis, this track is very different from the rest of the record, I would say. Like, and even kind of the way that Beck recants the story, he talks about how they've been writing a lot of folk songs and a lot of dirges and just like sad stuff, and like they'd been in the studio for 10 days and they went in, and he was like, man, I think we need to get our cockles warm and have some fun and really get rock and roll with it. And so they spent the whole day and they wrote and recorded 8 different tracks that they then ultimately like cut up and turned into this one song. It's like, as you listen to it, it's like a 6-minute track, and it has very clear kind of like segments where they transition or like things sound different, and it's a very different song from, I think, the rest of Mutations, but I do really love it. It was also released as like a B-side to a 7-inch that was included with the vinyl version of the album, which is a nice little collectible if if you're into that type of thing. But Beck's one of my musical heroes, and just the way that he continues to sort of grow as a musician and change the way that his style continues to evolve. It was like after this record that he went to do the Midnight Vultures record, which is, I think, my favorite of his. But I think you start to see a little bit of what Midnight Vultures is going to be in this track, which they originally said they wanted to include as like the second track on the album, but then it didn't really fit. And so he said, well, let's put it in as a secret song. So it's a wild, raucous ride for sure.
It's cool. I love that he just mined his own songs and like created a new one out of them. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we didn't even touch on any of the pre-track tracks where it's like you only have a minute
right
in the zero space if you go to one and then back up. It's a whole other little CD trick, but like, there were a couple of interesting ones there, but they're all so short because they're limited to that 1 minute time frame. I didn't want to go with any of those. But yeah, so those are our 6 picks for the week, and thanks, listener, for joining us. Of course, all of the picks from today's episode are going to be in the Spotify playlist that you will find in the show notes. So join us next episode for talking about family songs, parents singing about their kids and kids singing about their parents. And as always, we thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Do like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Shoot us an email if you've got notes or corrections for any of Jeffro's stupid takes. Until then, we'll see you. Keep jamming. This week's episode was produced by the McCucci twins, Philip and Sharon.
The McCucci twins. Sharon McCucci.
Edited by Dixon Kuntz. With special thanks, as always, to Dixie Wrecked.
Funny every time.